You've probably seen it. It shows up in your feed when you're not even looking for it. A quick clip, a bold claim, a before and after that feels almost too perfect. Someone swears by a simple trick that promises noticeable results in just a short stretch of time. No complicated routines, no expensive plans, just one change, repeated daily, and suddenly everything shifts. At first, I scrolled past it. Then I saw it again and again. Eventually, curiosity did what it always does. It leaned in closer and whispered, what if this actually works? So I decided to try it for myself, not as a shortcut, not as a miracle solution, but as an honest experiment. I wanted to see what would happen if I followed this viral weight loss trick exactly as described, with no exaggeration, no hidden steps, and no unrealistic expectations. What I discovered wasn't just about weight, it was about habits, mindset, and something far less obvious than I expected. The trick itself sounded almost too simple. It revolved around a combination of mindful eating and timing. The idea was to slow everything down, eat without distractions, pay attention to hunger cues, and most importantly, create a consistent rhythm between meals so the body could settle into a natural pattern. No extreme restrictions, no cutting out entire food groups. Just awareness, consistency, and intention. At first, I was skeptical. Because if something this simple worked, why wasn't everyone already doing it? But that's exactly why I decided to commit fully. No half effort. No shortcuts. Just a full, honest attempt. The first day felt strange. Not difficult. Just unfamiliar. I didn't realize how often I ate while distracted. Scrolling, watching something, thinking about something else entirely. Food had become background noise instead of something I actually experienced. So when I sat down for my first meal and did nothing but eat, it felt almost uncomfortable. I noticed things I usually ignored. The texture, the pace, the moment when I started feeling full, even before finishing everything on my plate. And that was the first small shift. Not dramatic, not life-changing, but noticeable. By the next day, the novelty started to wear off and reality stepped in. This is where most people probably stop, because consistency isn't exciting. It doesn't go viral. It doesn't give instant results. It just quietly tests your patience. I caught myself slipping back into old patterns, not in a dramatic way, not all at once, just in small, almost invisible moments. The urge to rush through a meal without really noticing it. The instinct to reach for a snack, not because I was hungry, but because it felt familiar. Automatic, easy, that quiet pull back toward autopilot, the place where decisions happen without awareness. And what surprised me most was how natural it felt. There was no resistance, no internal alarm saying stop, just a smooth return to what I had always done. That's when I realized something important. Change doesn't just happen because you decide it once. It gets tested again and again in these exact moments. Moments that don't seem significant on the surface, but quietly shape everything. Because it's easy to stay consistent when you're focused. It's much harder when your attention drifts, and mine was drifting. For a second, it would have been simple to give in. To eat quickly, to ignore the signals, to tell myself it didn't really matter. But this time, I did something different. I paused, not for long, just enough to interrupt the pattern. And in that small pause, something shifted. I noticed what I was about to do. I noticed why I was about to do it. And for the first time, I had a choice. Not a forced decision, not a battle of willpower. Just a quiet awareness that allowed me to respond differently. And that pause, as simple as it sounds, became more powerful than the trick itself. Because it wasn't about rules anymore. It was about presence. And once that awareness enters the moment, even briefly, it changes how that moment unfolds. Not perfectly, but meaningfully. And sometimes that's all it takes. Something interesting started happening around the middle of the experiment. Not physically at first, but mentally. I became more aware of why I was eating. Was it hunger? Boredom? Stress? Routine? For the first time, I could clearly tell the difference, and that awareness changed everything. Because once you notice a pattern, it's hard to unsee it. Here's the part most viral videos don't talk about. The trick isn't magic. It doesn't override biology, it doesn't replace balanced nutrition, and it definitely doesn't guarantee dramatic changes overnight. There's no hidden shortcut here. No secret mechanism that suddenly forces your body to respond in ways it normally wouldn't. The fundamentals still matter. What you eat, how you move, how you rest, none of that disappears just because you've added a new habit. But that's not really what this is about. Halfway through the experiment, I hit a wall. Not physically, but mentally. This was the moment where motivation dipped. The excitement was gone, the curiosity had faded, and all that was left was the routine. And routines can feel repetitive. This is the point where most people quietly step away, not because they failed, not because the process isn't working, but because something far less obvious begins to fade. The excitement disappears. At the beginning, everything feels new. There's curiosity, a sense of possibility, even a bit of anticipation. You're paying attention, you're engaged. Every small change feels meaningful because you're looking for it. But then, that feeling settles. The routine becomes familiar, predictable, almost invisible, and that's where things shift. Because without excitement, the same actions start to feel repetitive. The mind begins to wander again, searching for something more stimulating, more immediate, more rewarding. That's when the subtle resistance shows up. Not loud enough to force you to stop, just quiet enough to make stopping feel reasonable. It's not that important. I'll get back to it tomorrow. Maybe this isn't doing much anyway. And the truth is, those thoughts don't feel like giving up. They feel logical, sensible even. But underneath that surface, something deeper is happening. The process is no longer being tested by effort. It's being tested by consistency. So I paused for a moment, not to force motivation, not to push through blindly, but to ask myself something honest. Was I doing this just to see quick results? Or was I actually trying to understand something? That question changed everything. Because the moment I stopped chasing visible outcomes, I started noticing what had been there all along. The patterns, the habits, the small decisions that usually go unnoticed. And suddenly, this wasn't just an experiment anymore. It became something else entirely. Because instead of chasing a visible outcome, I started paying attention to internal changes. Energy levels, focus, how I felt after eating, and something subtle began to shift. I didn't feel as heavy after meals. I didn't feel the same urge to snack constantly. And most importantly, I felt more in control, not restricted, not deprived, just aware. Let me pause here for a moment, because this is where things get interesting. If you're still watching, you're probably wondering the same thing I was wondering at this point. Did it actually work? Did anything change in a noticeable way? Or was this just another overhyped trend that fades as quickly as it appears? The answer isn't as simple as yes or no. Because what changed wasn't just physical, it was behavioral. And that's something most people overlook. As the final stretch approached, I realized something important. The trick itself wasn't the real takeaway. It was the structure it created. It forced me to be present. It removed distractions. It turned eating into a conscious activity instead of an automatic one. And once that shift happens, it affects more than just meals. It affects decisions, choices, habits. By the final day, something felt different. Not dramatically different, not in a way that would shock anyone looking from the outside, but internally, there was a clear shift. I wasn't rushing through meals, I wasn't eating out of boredom, and I wasn't ignoring signals my body was trying to send. And that matters more than any quick result. A way to reconnect with something basic that often gets lost in the noise. As I wrapped up the experience, I found myself asking a different question. Not did it work? But what did I learn? And the answer was surprisingly clear. Change doesn't always come from doing something extreme. Sometimes it comes from doing something simple, consistently, with intention. There's one final thought I want to leave you with, something that stayed with me long after the experiment ended. We often look for big solutions to fix small habits, but sometimes it's the small habits that quietly shape everything else. And when you adjust those, even slightly, the ripple effect can be bigger than expected. So if you've seen this trend before and wondered whether it's worth trying, the answer depends on what you're looking for. If you're expecting instant transformation, you might be disappointed. But if you're open to understanding your habits on a deeper level, you might discover something more valuable than quick results. And maybe that's the real reason this trick went viral, not because it promises something unrealistic, but because it quietly points people back to something real. If you made it this far, I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts. Have you tried anything similar? Did it change the way you approach your daily habits? Or do you think trends like this are just another passing phase? Drop your perspective in the comments. Your experience might help someone else see things differently. And if you found this exploration interesting, go ahead and like the video. It really helps more than you might think. Subscribe if you want more honest experiments like this, where we look beyond the hype and focus on what actually matters. And if someone you know has been curious about this kind of trend, share this with them. Sometimes a simple idea becomes more meaningful when you explore it together. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.